What have I gotten myself into? What on earth possessed me? Who exactly am I becoming? It felt incredible. I cherished every second of it. Yet at 78, Sally Field has nothing left to chase. 2 Academy Awards, countless iconic performances, and the image of being one of Hollywood's most admired stars. Still, beneath the ovations and tender portrayals hides a version of Sally the world hardly glimpses. It's a side that never forgets each slight, each wound, every colleague who crossed her. And today, carrying the perspective of age and experience, Sally Field is finally naming the 6 actors she despised most. These weren't small quarrels or quick tempers. These were raw, lasting confrontations, some on set, others in private, that altered her path and stayed with her long after filming ended. You may think you understand Hollywood, but this revelation shifts the entire picture. So here we go. The Heartbreaker, Burt Reynolds. Their love affair filled magazine covers. Sally Field and Burt Reynolds, the golden pair of the late 70s. On screen, they dazzled, funny, magnetic, playful, and impossible to ignore. Smokey and the Bandit turned into a sensation, largely because their spark looked so genuine. Yet when the lights faded, the reality was far darker. Sally described Burt as controlling, a man addicted to power who dismissed even her presence. He repeatedly cut her down, ridiculed her appearance, doubted her mind, and quietly shredded her talent. He'd disguise cruelty as compliments during interviews, only to retreat home to cold silences and biting remarks. Through her memoir, In Pieces, Sally stripped away Hollywood's polished facade. She disclosed that Burt constantly cut her off, denied her a voice, and overrode her choices both on set and at home. What he expected was her presence, smiling, quiet, and compliant. Sally recalled feeling more like a display item, something to flaunt rather than a partner to treasure. Even worse, he toyed with her feelings. At times he was tender and charming, then suddenly distant, using love as a weapon. Gradually, she felt her identity slipping away. Even during her biggest successes, she often faded into the background whenever he was near. "I never felt fully acknowledged," she revealed. "I existed, but I wasn't whole, not completely me." After everything, Sally admitted she was never sure who Burt Reynolds truly was. The adored public persona vanished once he was behind closed doors. Still, she made the effort. She poured herself into the relationship, determined to keep it alive. "I wanted to give him love. I did love him, but he caused me pain." The world may have celebrated him as the bandit, but to Sally, he was heartbreak in human form. And merely the start. Next came the egotist, Tommy Lee Jones. Walking onto the set of Backroads, Sally carried optimism. The project promised grit, originality, and a role with substance. She entered eager to build something real and lasting. Instead of kinship, what she met was distance. That distance had a name, Tommy Lee Jones. Right from the first day, she said he treated her with disregard, both in work and in private moments. During rehearsals, he kept silent, skipped casual exchange, and shut down the give and take most actors rely on for trust in difficult scenes. He showed up, did the lines, hit the marks, and walked away. No kindness, no courtesy, only coldness. For an actress defined by openness and genuine emotion, his approach was jarring. She wasn't facing just a detached character. She was facing a detached man. Scene partners are meant to elevate each other. He reduced her to feeling like a burden. Years later, Sally admitted she often tried to spark conversation between takes, ask about character choices, or slip in a light joke to soften the mood. Jones refused to engage. At times, he wouldn't even meet her eyes. According to Sally, he acted as if she didn't deserve her place on set, treating her like someone lesser. When Backroads premiered, critics slammed it for lacking believable chemistry. What no one realized was that the issue had nothing to do with the script. The real culprit was the chill that lingered between scenes. Sally recalled, "We were meant to play two broken souls finding love. Instead, I was left performing alone." She stayed professional, but privately admitted the process had left her drained. The atmosphere wasn't just frigid, it was suffocating. For someone like Sally, who relies on connection, that absence of warmth felt destructive. After Backroads, she chose never to team up with Tommy Lee Jones again. And though she never attacked him publicly, the icy undertone in her reflections revealed the truth. She carried the memory of that set for years. But some battles were anything but quiet. Enter Robert Blake, the showboater. While making Say Goodbye, Maggie Cole, Sally found herself opposite one of Hollywood's most explosive figures. Famous for method acting taken to extremes, Blake carried his volatility from performance into every corner of production. From day one, Sally struggled to match pace. Blake rewrote dialogue on the spot, strayed from the script mid-scene, and wrecked carefully timed takes with unscripted stunts. To him, it was creative freedom. To her, it was unfiltered chaos. She later accused him of tearing down her work both on camera and behind it. And the disruption spread far beyond her. Crew members often witnessed tirades, mood swings, and sudden walkouts that poisoned the set. One day he'd be calm, the next screaming at a grip or storming out over nothing. With pressure already mounting, Sally found herself forced into the role of mediator just to keep things moving. But the strain proved overwhelming. That toxicity seeped into every frame until the project unraveled. In the end, the movie was shelved before audiences ever saw it. Another production swallowed by dysfunction that no one could contain. For most, it would have been nothing more than a failed credit. For Sally, the wound went deeper. She described it not only as frustrating, but scarring. Once she said, "There are actors who share, and there are actors who belittle everyone else to stand taller." In her eyes, Blake embodied the latter. Her words cut to the core, not with rage, but with the gravity of someone who had endured real harm. She left Say Goodbye, Maggie Cole with a vow. Never again would she allow disorder disguised as brilliance. Yet not every rivalry began with scripts. Some sparked during the award circuit. Enter Shirley MacLaine, the challenger. On screen in Steel Magnolias, they looked like a perfect pairing. Two legends carrying a story of grief, love, and survival. But privately, their partnership lacked warmth. From the first days of filming, sparks of tension were obvious. Sally immersed herself in the emotional honesty of her character Malin, wanting the performance to breathe authenticity. Shirley, on the other hand, approached every moment like combat. Insiders recalled how she boasted constantly about her Oscar history, brushed off notes, and hijacked takes to spotlight herself in scenes that weren't hers. Sally held her composure, smiling for the cameras and hitting her cues, but admitted she was drained by the effort. One climactic scene stretched across 17 exhausting takes, not because Sally faltered, but because Shirley laced it with sarcastic ad-libs that stripped away its raw power. What was meant to be heartbreak became mockery. In later interviews, Sally avoided harsh words, but quietly hinted that Shirley left a trail of disorder everywhere she worked. It came without malice, only honesty. This wasn't merely a difference in method, it was pride clashing with pride. Shirley had to command attention. Sally only cared about honoring the work. And the scars lasted well past filming. While audiences wept over MacLaine's moving lines, Sally recognized the real heartbreak unfolded off-set. The memory never faded. But the next man didn't just bruise her spirit, he broke her sense of safety. The culprit was James Woods. Their time on Kiss Me Goodbye was meant to be lighthearted, a romantic comedy with charm and wit to entertain viewers. Yet from day one, Sally Field sensed something wrong. That problem was James Woods. Woods, admired for his sharp but heavy intensity, carried an energy that warped playful moments into mental duels. He didn't simply recite dialogue, he tore them apart, argued with the director, and rewrote scenes mid-shoot without warning. Every practice turned into a fight for control. Sally, known for openness and true collaboration, felt herself crushed. She would later call Woods intellectually overpowering, a man who wielded clever phrasing not to connect, but to dominate. On set, he challenged the writing, mocked the direction, and even critiqued her mid-performance, creating a stifling environment that killed the joy of acting. But what unsettled Sally most happened behind the scenes. Woods, she recalled, would slyly suggest she wasn't giving enough, that her passion was missing. He accused her of going through the motions during a deeply emotional day, a jab that cut harder than he realized. To Sally, it felt less like feedback and more like deliberate sabotage. He wasn't urging her toward greatness. He was trying to shrink her confidence and certainty. And after years of clawing for respect in a male-dominated world, it was a devastating blow. She would later see the experience not as artistic friction, but as emotional warfare. It wasn't the part that broke me down, she explained. It was constantly being forced to prove my place. She left that set not only drained, but forever altered. She made a silent promise. Never again would she allow a man to confuse belittlement with brilliance. One final name stands apart. Perhaps the most shocking of them all, the unlikely offender, Dustin Hoffman. To the outside world, Dustin Hoffman is celebrated, an actor revered with Oscars and acclaim. But to Sally Field, he stood for something darker. Not a partner, not a peer, just a bitter letdown. Though they never shared the screen, their paths nearly converged in the early 1980s during auditions for a forgotten project that never advanced. For Sally, it began as an exciting possibility. Instead, it became one of the lowest points of her career. During the chemistry test, Hoffman controlled the room before she even arrived. He laughed with producers, mocked the script, and when she finally began reading, he cut her off again and again, not to collaborate, but to scold her timing, dismiss her choices, and even critiqued her mid-performance. She wasn't just being assessed, she was being demeaned. In Sally's account, it was like reading for someone who had already decided she wasn't worthy. She said it reduced her to a student, not a seasoned Emmy-winning actress with years of proven work. The pain grew sharper when days later she learned through a colleague that Hoffman had boasted about ruining the audition. He allegedly claimed the chemistry failed and that he had ensured it. For Sally, that wasn't simply bad manners, it was cruelty. It took time for her to recover from the sting. For weeks, she second-guessed herself, wondering if she had thrown away the chance. But with distance came truth. The fault hadn't been her performance, it was Hoffman's urge to dominate, to show he was the cleverest man in the room, even if it crushed another's voice. She would later call it one of the most degrading episodes of her career, and it altered her perspective forever. From then forward, Sally pledged no more working with men who confuse arrogance for artistry, and she honored that vow.